Hello and welcome to ET Auto. We are here at the Tata Motors Pavilion at the 2025 edition of Bharat Mobility Global Expo. And Tata Motors has created a kind of a splash with a lot of showcases. Let us hear it from Mohan Savarkar, Chief Product Officer at Tata Motors Passenger Vehicles. Mohan, congratulations on this slew of showcases. Just run us through it very briefly on this.
So first of all, welcome Sumantro to us, let's say, even today here. And as you have seen, there are so many things that we are trying to show here today. And just to recap a little bit for your audience. So first of all, this year we have crossed 6 million of overall sales of PV so far. And that's quite a big event for all of us. And then if you see that the last 3 years we have been growing, this year was yet another year of growth for us with about 5,62,000 cars on the road already. Okay. So beyond this, all of us know that Punch has become the highest selling car in India, clocking more than 200,000 in the last year, and that's how our growth has been. You will see that the multi-powertrain strategy that we have been bringing to India has worked for us. We have many cars that have gasoline plus CNG plus EV, and in some cases diesel also. So all this is working very well for us. So we see that this kind of growth momentum is going to continue in the future years. And for today, you have seen us show very many launches, which are basically categorized into three parts. So there's one on adventure, the second one on safety, and third one is on future sustainability. And you will see that all the products that we had today are on these three lines. So you saw the launch of Sierra. Okay, then you also saw the launch of Harrier.ev. You also saw the launch of Avinya.x. And then things that were not on the stage but are in the stall today include our two gasoline engines with 1.2 GDI and 1.5 GDI, and several other interventions that we are showing here, including the Stealth on Harrier Safari, the Bandipur on all our SUV range, and so many other things that are going to be so exciting for your viewership.
And talking about sustainable mobility, sustainable transportation, there's a multi-technology approach, and which you also said, in your case also at Tata Motors, you are making efforts towards that. And we are standing here next to this Tata Motors Flex Fuel edition. And this year is going to be a key year for the automotive industry in India, because the E20 regulation, which in other words is for the benefit of our viewers, it's the 20% blend of ethanol in gasoline with the eventual goal of flex fuel. So this one, so how much of a engineering intervention did you have to make, modification did you have to make to meet this? And for the flex fuel eventually, would it require further more modifications?
Yeah. So to look at it in three parts. So first, talking about sustainable mobility. So you will see that we are showing three kind of technologies here. There's a one on CNG, which is a small step, gets you about 12 to 14% of improvement in general CO2. Then we have also showcased EV, which is of course the final and best solution. And then we have showcased the car in front of us today, which is the Flex Fuel. The car that we are showcasing here is a 85% ethanol blend ready car. Okay. So the regulation that's coming into India in March end or April of 25 is the E20 or 20% blend of ethanol in gasoline. Yeah. By the way, all our cars are already material ready for the E20. It is just that the ECUs need to be recalibrated to make sure that it will run well even with the 20% ethanol. Coming to E85, there are several things that happen when you go to E85. Okay, so first of all, there is hardly any gasoline, so your engine has to learn how to run itself on ethanol alone. Okay, so that itself is a big tech jump. For example, even the fuel rails need to be heated fuel rails because the fuel burns well only if it's above a certain temperature.
Right.
So you have to make sure that the fuel entering the cylinder heads always enter at a certain temperature and above.
Which is what range would it be?
Around 25, let's say. It's not as if it needs to be very hot, but it can't be too cold.
Okay.
So then it doesn't ignite.
Especially in high altitude, it will matter.
And then of course the energy profile of this fuel is very different. It has much less energy than normal gasoline.
So that will be a critical factor, because to the end consumer, it will mean same amount of fuel but less distance covered. So which means no drop in fuel efficiency. But there is how much of it can you compensate through engineering interventions, and how much support do you think would be required from a policy framework perspective?
Sure. So to capture it, see, India is not the first country to go in for 85% blend. Okay, let's say Brazil has done it.
Right.
So we have very good examples from there that despite the best technological inputs that can go in the car, there is an expected 30-32% drop in terms of fuel efficiency or the CO2 values. Yeah. So which means that if ethanol has to be bought by normal consumers in an open market situation, then the fuel cost of ethanol has to be 30% less than gasoline. Otherwise, it's not a break even for consumers, and consumers would not buy them in normal circumstances.
Yeah.
And if you look at the policy intervention, it will need to find a way of making consumers interested to buy 85% ethanol blend,
Yes.
even with the 30% drop in fuel
So
efficiency.
it should be at least at par with gasoline, if not some additional incentive to kind of adopt this new technology in a way, right?
Otherwise, then, like it happens in case of Brazil, there is a pump on which you have gasoline also and 85% flex also. If you give choice to consumers to put any fuel, they will normally gravitate towards the gasoline only.
Yeah.
Unless we are able to find a way of making sure consumers would like to go for 85% blend.
Right. And one is that, and secondly, because in India's overall objective of achieving carbon neutrality by 2070, these things will matter a lot, right? Because from a policy intervention and industry's own efforts, right? So beyond so if CNG is another key factor which you have kind of really focused on. So tell us how much of penetration has CNG made into your overall portfolio, and how do you plan to take it forward?
Yeah. So CNG has been very good for us. I mean, if now let's say in the cars that have CNG, we're already seeing penetration is 25% or more. Okay, and this is despite CNG not being available at every petrol pump in India. Okay, but we are seeing the government is taking very good interest in CNG and making sure that CNG pipelines are getting laid, petrol pumps are getting enabled. Okay, and there is two kind of techs that is used. There's something called offline and online CNG. Online means a certain city has a pipeline that supplies CNG to the city, which is then fed to respective petrol pumps. Offline means CNG comes to a city in the form of tanks, which is then distributed. Okay. So, but let's say the tank system is not sufficient. So unless we have pipelines laid out, growth of CNG will not be as much as the potential is. But once pipeline reaches a certain city, we find that penetration starts rising very fast.
And are you looking at offering a CNG option across your product portfolio, or do you think there are certain models, let's say the Harrier, for example, or the Safari, for example, it's best to be only diesel?
Interesting question. We are also at it. We'll also wait for how consumers react to CNG in various segments, and then keep on making sure that we offer CNG in as many products that our customers would like to buy.
Lastly, safety has been one of your key pillars of your, I would say, if I may call it, the turnaround strategy also for Tata Motors. And you have achieved some good results. Going forward, is B and Cap 5-star the minimal that you would be targeting at?
No, we would want to make sure that our cars are the safest in every segment that we play in. Okay. The stars is something that is, just an indication of it passing a certain test. Okay. There would be times when the safety that we aim for will be higher than the GNCAP 5-star tests also. There will be times when the BNCAP standard itself will undergo revisions.
Right. The
So
protocols.
so we'll need to be ready to make sure that as, let's say, education happens, as technology advances, we need to make sure that we are, up there ahead as much as possible. And things like ADAS, for example, are not covered by GNCAP or BNCAP today. But we would want to do it because it's a way to make sure that people don't get into accidents. You would require a GNCAP or BNCAP car if you have an accident.
Right.
Better still is let's see how not to have people enter accidents. So we would want to work on that also.
As now it's also said, the best kind of crash is a crash that doesn't happen.
Didn't happen.
And lastly, in this whole softwareization trend, Mohan, there's also a sense or a belief that mechanical engineering is perhaps no longer that relevant, and which is running in the minds of the youngsters and maybe their parents. What is the message that you'd like to give, in terms of the relevance? Is still relevant to have, important to have, to focus or pursue mechanical engineering to those who may be inherently interested in it.
Let's say from mechanical engineering point of view, cars are evolving even now. But if you see consumer behavior, as you would have noticed in your own home, homes of today are becoming quite advanced. People are getting into gadgets. Even our cell phones and all the devices that we run today are quite high tech. And then, consumers like to see that the same high tech, let's say, features go from their phones into their houses, and from their houses into the cars
And offices.
and to offices. And this is a trend that is not going to reverse itself. Ultimately, you will find that people buy cars for the tech that they have. It is, let's say, hygiene that it would work well as a car also.
So, but you're saying that mechanical engineering will
It
still
won't die.
it will not never die, and therefore those who want to pursue would pursue. So, on that note, Mohan, always a pleasure talking to you. Wishing you and your team
Thank you so
all the
much.
very best.
Nice meeting.
Same here. And there you heard Mohan Savarkar, Chief Product Officer at Tata Motors Passenger Vehicles, talking about the showcases that the company has offered here at the Global Mobility Expo, and also on the strategy towards having a multi-technology approach towards sustainable mobility, of which flex fuel will be a key part, and starting with the E20 regulation, which will kick in India by 1st April 2025. So, indeed, interesting road ahead for the automotive industry, and players like Tata Motors are making their efforts towards offering whatever they can in terms of products. But at the same time, whenever it's something new technology, there has to be adequate policy intervention also. So I'm sure that will hopefully also take place in India. On that note, thanks for watching this interview. Take care. Goodbye.